Thanks, Sam. Great, brilliant. So I'm going to hope that my slides work. So hi everyone. Thank you for having me along here today, Sam. I'm really excited to tell everyone about the Forum for Local Action on Energy Efficiency Behaviour, which is otherwise known as the Energy Behaviour Forum in short term. So I'm Alice Rayner. I'm from the Energy Saving Trust in the UK, and we're an organisation that's working to address the climate emergency. And we're working on the Energy Behaviour Forum, as Sam said, as part of a consortium which is led by our colleagues in Veto. I think I might have seen Erica's name pop up in the chat, who's leading the project. So more on that later, but that's who I am and why I'm here today. So to start with, what is the Energy Behaviour Forum? So it was born out of a need for strong support for local and regional authorities in energy efficiency interventions. So as I'm sure many of us on the call here today will know, energy efficiency interventions are really crucial as changing the way that we use energy not only strengthens Europe's energy security, but also plays obviously a very important role in tackling climate change and environmental degradation. In the past, there have been many initiatives to support local and regional authorities to implement EU and national energy saving strategies, but only quite recently has behaviour change been clearly recognised as essential for reducing energy use to sustainable levels. Although there has been this growing recognition of the importance of behaviour change, there are still some gaps in kind of what's out there to support local and regional authorities. So, for example, there's often a lack of kind of comprehensive case studies and proven examples of what works to support local authorities in their behaviour change policies and programmes. So in a nutshell, the Energy Behaviour Forum is kind of developed to try and address some of these gaps. So the aim being to establish a digital platform to advance and share energy efficient behavioural practices and to support local and regional authorities in integrating behavioural insights into the design and implementation of energy efficiency interventions. So as Sam mentioned, the Energy Behaviour Forum is funded by the EU Commission, and it's being developed by a consortium. This is led, and like I said, by Veto, who are the Flemish Institute for Technological Research. And there are 12 partners who I won't read out, but you can see kind of on the slides here who else is working on the project. It's been going now for nearly a year, started in March 2025, and the first phase will run until the end of 2026. So although obviously there are these 12 partners in the consortium working on the Energy Behaviour Forum, it's important to note that we are doing this very collaboratively. We're using strong partnerships with local and regional authorities, along with experts in behavioural science and energy efficiency to ensure all the needs are met. So we're taking quite a user-centred kind of approach to this. We've done user research with the local and regional authorities to understand kind of what behaviour change programmes they're working on, what the barriers are that they face, so that the Energy Behaviour Forum is really designed to kind of address those needs. Stakeholders are also invited to get involved by sharing case studies of things that they've done that have worked well, or challenges that they've faced and how they've addressed those. Also invited to take part in the capacity building programme, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail later, and becoming friends of the forum. And we've also invited stakeholders to provide feedback about the forum at different stages of development and implementation. So it's very much not a case of sort of researchers sitting in our ivory tower developing this forum. It's very much in collaboration with the people that are going to be using it at the end of the day. So what actually is on this forum that I keep talking about? What can you actually expect? So the digital platform is very soon going to be launched, hopefully in the next week or two, and that'll be a great opportunity for people to kind of explore what it has to offer themselves. But as a kind of little overview of what you can expect from the digital forum. So there's going to be a discover section, which is where you can get to know about the Energy Behaviour Forum and the kind of news and events and upcoming things. a design section, which is focusing on helping local and regional authorities to design their behavioural interventions. This is where we've got the Behavioural Insights Toolkit, which Sam mentioned has been based on the Users TCP policy support tool, which is going to help the users to get some inspiration and ideas and help them start thinking about designing their own behaviour change programmes that are informed by behavioural science. There'll be an implement and increase impact section, or two sections. Both of these will be full of really great behavioural insights resources, kind of how to implement energy efficiency programs, as well as how to kind of measure the impact of these, and some kind of good hints and tips as to how you can increase the impact of your behavioural change programs. An interact section is where we'll share case studies that are submitted by people from across Europe, and that's sort of open for people to be able to kind of submit their own case studies as well. So this is kind of the area where we'll learn from each other and see what's worked and maybe what hasn't worked in different countries to help local and regional authorities to develop their own programs. And finally, we've got a training section, which I'll give a little bit more detail on in a couple of slides' time. But there are different types of training, kind of depending on what level of knowledge you already have and kind of how involved you are in developing behaviour change programs. So, as I've said, the website is not live yet, but it's very much been developed. And this is just a little sneak preview of the testing version of the website. So you can see kind of along the banner at the top, we've got the different sections of the website, which I've just talked through, where you'll be able to find kind of resources and guidance. At the moment, we're on the case studies section, which I mentioned. You can see that we've already got 11 case studies up there. By the time the website goes live, and kind of within a few weeks' time, we'll be adding to that. We've got kind of a wealth of really great examples to share that you can also filter by different countries and target groups and target behaviours, so that you can find the case studies that are kind of most relevant. As a little example of some of the case studies that we've already got on there, as I've said, it covers a range of sectors. So there's residential, industry, transport, different behaviours, so energy efficiency, demand, flexibility, adopting new technologies, and different kinds of behavioural interventions. So your kind of more classic campaigns, programs that use incentives, ways of using social influence as well to improve the programs. So some nice examples that I thought I'd just highlight here to give a kind of a snippet. We had a submission from Austria called the Verlagen project, and you're going to have to forgive my pronunciation for all of these ones. But the Verlagen program was, they used behavioural insights such as gamification to make it kind of more fun for children to walk to school instead of being driven by their parents. So children were given a kind of little sort of treasure map that they could use to map their route to school and find little fun things along the way. They used the COM-B model, which some of you may be familiar with, and I'm going to talk about in a bit more detail later, to help sort of target motivation, so making it more fun for children to walk to school, but also targeting capability by doing kind of practice runs with children and parents so that they improve their confidence and became more confident in walking to school. So that's a nice example from Austria. Very different example from Italy is Gigawatt, which is a TV show that's aired kind of nationally, and it's aimed at young people. It uses sort of fun challenges to make energy saving behaviour kind of more socially desirable and normal. They have kind of celebrity guests and things like that, using messengers that will resonate with young people, so that energy saving behaviour becomes kind of part of the national conversation. The EV Dealership Awards in Ireland was a programme that was run by the Irish authority, and they used non-financial incentives and rewards to encourage the sale of electric vehicles. So dealers who were selling electric vehicles and promoting these to their customers were assessed in a kind of a mystery shopping exercise, and the dealerships that were doing well got a reward in terms of a kind of a plaque or a certificate saying that, you know, that they'd done well at this, and they got some kind of promotion for their dealership as well. The Stromspar check in Germany was a nice example of, again, using the right messenger to target groups. So unemployed individuals have been trained to become energy advisors, and in turn they're supporting vulnerable households. And this works quite well because obviously the vulnerable households are being advised by someone that they can relate to, and it obviously provides gainful employment to a group that might not otherwise have it. And then finally, Norgest Klima, I think is how I'd pronounce that, which is a French app which allows users to calculate their carbon footprint and then encourages users to take part in challenges to reduce their emissions. So that's all about our kind of small climate actions that everybody can take, and the kind of behavioural principles behind kind of feedback and understanding how well you're doing being kind of motivational to kind of increase that behaviour. So it's sort of a snapshot of some of the really interesting case studies that we've gathered for the forum. We've also got, as I mentioned, the implement section, which features a digital library, which is a really large range of materials that we've gathered from across Europe that can be used as inspiration for behaviour change programmes. So a couple of examples I've just copied on here. So there are sort of campaign materials that you can kind of use as inspiration or local authorities can use as inspiration for their own programmes. And again, it covers a range of sectors. So residential, transport industry, lots of different behaviours and intervention types. So that's, again, just a brief snapshot, but there are over 200 different materials that we've gathered. So it's a very comprehensive library, and we're very excited to get that live so that people can start having a look at that and seeing what might be helpful for them. Finally, or perhaps not finally, but one of the next big sections of the forum is the capacity building programme, which is the sort of the training programme. There are 3 different types of training, as I mentioned, depending on what level people are at. So there's in-depth training, which is for selected participants from local and regional authorities. And that's a series of training sessions, 5 or 6 sessions run over a series of months, and people get really in-depth support in setting up their own behaviour change initiatives, using the peer group that they're in to help develop those ideas, but also supported by behavioural science experts who can kind of give advice about how to improve their programmes. So we're coming to the end of the first cycle of that in-depth training, and the next cycle will be starting soon. Then there's the MOOCs, which is the online courses, which are open to everybody. That's self-directed. And there are 8 different modules on behaviour change basics. So this is kind of more of a starting point for people that are interested in learning about that. And there's lots of interactive content and videos. So it's quite a fun kind of training materials, not lots of reams and reams of paper to read through. And finally, there's the train the trainer sessions, which is more targeted at experts who would be consultants or assisting local and regional authorities to develop their behaviour change programmes. So this is more about keeping up to date on the latest research and insights on behaviour change. So that's at a more kind of higher level than the other entry levels. Okay, so the next big part of the Energy Behaviour Forum is the Behavioural Insights Toolkit, which I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive into because this feeds off of the Users TCP toolkit that Sam mentioned had been presented at a previous session. If you want to look that up, I have got the link for it later in the slides. I'm just going to grab a quick glass of water before I carry on. But if anyone has any questions kind of on the first part about the Energy Behaviour Forum, kind of in more general terms, please do put them in the Q&A now while it's fresh in your mind.
Thanks, Alice. Yeah, so the Q&A part, bottom of your screen. If you've got any questions on that first half of the presentation, please do pop them in there now. We'll deal with them at the end of the presentation in one bundle. But yeah, thanks a lot. Anyway, back to you, Alice.
Great, thanks, Sam. Just needed to have a little glass of water because I think I'm probably speaking a bit fast. I'll try and go a bit slower. So the Behavioural Insights Toolkit is the sort of the next chunk of the presentation. So the Behavioural Insights Toolkit, as I mentioned, is part of the Energy Behaviour Forum. It'll sit on that website that I showed you the snapshot of earlier. Our goal with the Behavioural Insights Toolkit is to develop this toolkit to support Energy Behaviour Forum users to design their own behaviour change programs, and it builds on the Users TCP toolkit. So we had a few requirements for how the toolkit needed to work. So it obviously needed to meet the needs of the Energy Behaviour Forum users. It had to be based on a behavioural science framework so that it was evidence-based, and has to align with other sections of the forum and be translatable into the EU languages. So we took a kind of four-ish steps approach to developing the toolkit, wanting to make sure that we kind of had reviewed everything before we started on actually developing it. So using the Users TCP toolkit as a starting point, then conducting some user research to understand the user's needs, and then reviewing the behavioural frameworks to ensure that the toolkit is evidence-based, and then finally the development of the toolkit. So first and foremost, we reviewed the Users TCP Behavioural Insights Toolkit, which you obviously won't be able to click on the link, but when the slides are sent around, it's in there. You could probably Google it and it will come up. Applying Behavioural Insights to Energy Policy is the title. So you can see here, I've just got a couple of screenshots again, that the toolkit is this nice kind of interactive way that users can kind of click in, say, I'm developing a new program. They answer some questions about what they aim to do with their behaviour change program, and then they follow a few steps through where the toolkit gives them some information about kind of behavioural factors that might be influencing their program. So things like lack of attractiveness or existing habits that might make it difficult for citizens to change their behaviour. You can click into those and you get these really nice checklists of how to, for example, make energy efficiency more attractive. And then within those, you can click into the boxes and it gives you a nice little sort of case study showing an example of how that sort of particular insight has been used somewhere else, and kind of some good information about the behavioural science sort of behind that. So that was kind of where we were starting from in terms of that we want our toolkit to have this same kind of interactive flow. We want it to be able to kind of lead people to some information at the end that'll be kind of relevant to them, that'll teach them something new, and that'll kind of inspire them with their own behaviour change programs. So concurrently with this, we also conducted our user consultation. So we did a survey, a focus group, and some interviews with the target group, which is people working in energy and transport within local and regional authorities, to really understand their experience with behaviour change programs and the barriers that they've faced applying behavioural insights, and then ultimately how the Energy Behaviour Forum as a whole, but also the toolkit, could help support them. So what did we find? So this is quite a busy group. It was hard to recruit even because everyone's kind of so busy in their day job doing all this really important stuff, trying to promote energy efficiency. Everyone was very focused on kind of their project delivery within their sector. A lot of people were working on kind of awareness raising campaigns. People were quite new to the concept of behavioural insights. There was definitely an appetite to learn more, and people recognised that behavioural science and behavioural insights could really help to kind of enhance their programs, but they weren't really sure where to start. And they really felt like they needed information in kind of an easy, accessible way, with the chance to then kind of delve deeper at their own pace. And something, again, that doesn't take up too much time was also something that came out. So we felt from this that the toolkit should be pitched at quite a beginner level, not really assuming too much knowledge from the users, and that we really wanted the toolkit to be a way to kind of engage users, introduce behavioural insights and kind of the basics, inspire some ideas, and sort of direct them to other parts of the Energy Behaviour Forum where they can go into that sort of more in depth. So we didn't want the toolkit to kind of be the be all and end all and have everything in it, but be a place that kind of hooks people in and sort of signposts to the other parts of the forum. So we also wanted to make sure that we were integrating a behavioural framework in the toolkit, because it was important for for us, but also the EU Commission wanted it to be kind of evidence-based. So we reviewed multiple options of different behavioural frameworks. For example, we looked at the EAST framework, which some people on the call might have heard of, which stands for easy, attractive, social and timely. I knew it somewhere. So we looked at a few different models, but we ended up settling on the Behaviour Change Wheel, which also encompasses the COMBI model, which I mentioned earlier. This is a framework that's derived from 19 different behavioural models. The hub, which is the green bit in the middle of the wheel, allows users to identify the sources of behaviour, and then the outer layers guide users to the interventions and policy categories which might help to change behaviour. So we selected this model because it's evidence-based, as it's derived from 19 different models. It's comprehensive, and it's systematic as well. It takes you from understanding behaviour to developing strategies, which we quite liked, rather than kind of jumping straight to solutions. We thought it was good to get people to think about maybe what the behavioural barriers are currently. So a little bit more on COMBI and how that fits within the Behaviour Change Wheel. And this might not be new information to those on the call, but just for the sake of kind of thoroughness. So the hub of the Behaviour Change Wheel is the COMBI model. And that states that capability, opportunity and motivation are the three key factors needed to change behaviour. And that's where the C, O and M come from for COMBI. It's a acronym. So capability refers to whether we have the knowledge, the skills and the ability to engage in a behaviour. So that might be, if you're talking about encouraging rates of cycling, that might be, fundamentally whether people know how to ride a bike. Opportunity tends to refer to external factors, both physical and social, that make the behaviour possible. So that'll be whether kind of the infrastructure around us supports that behaviour, but also whether our social groups support that behaviour. So if it's kind of normal in our peer group to go cycling, then that will help to increase our opportunity to take part in that behaviour. And motivation refers to the conscious and subconscious internal processes that influence decision making and behaviour. So that's the kind of rational decision making where we weigh up the pros and cons, but also the kind of subconscious things that we're just in the habit of doing. That all falls in the kind of motivation space. And understanding which factors help to drive behaviour can really help users to understand which interventions and policies may be most successful at encouraging behaviour change. And we felt that this was quite important to incorporate, because a lot of the people that we spoke to working on behaviour change programmes were very much focusing on kind of awareness raising campaigns. So we wanted to make sure that people were looking at perhaps other behavioural barriers that might be stopping people from taking part in energy efficiency behaviour beyond just not knowing what to do, which is normally what an awareness campaign focuses on. So the toolkit design, this is kind of the overview of the steps of the toolkit. So we start with the sector, and the user can choose whether it's residential, industry, transport, etc. Then moving on to programme aims, they're different kind of depending on what the sector is, but they're things like changing energy use behaviours or increasing the uptake of new technology. And this step is to help the user start thinking about their programme and kind of what they want to achieve. Then we have an educational step, which sort of covers the COMBI model in much more sort of layman's terms, and explains kind of about behaviour change being enabled by increasing capability, opportunity and motivation. And this step is, like I say, to help users go beyond just thinking about raising awareness. The interventions section then in the toolkit talks the users through the different categories of interventions which mirror the outer wheel on the behaviour change wheel. So we've got education, training, regulatory measures, environmental restructuring, social influence, which is typically modelling on the behaviour change wheel, but we've expanded that out a little bit. Enablement or enabling access to services and infrastructure, and using incentives and rewards. Then within each of these categories, you can go in and there's some more specific solutions, sort of 3 to 5 solutions per category, which is we have used some of the content from the Users TCP Toolkit here. So for example, under education, there'll be things about identifying the right channels and using the right messenger to make sure that your message kind of gets through in the best way. And then finally, we've got links to other parts of the Energy Behaviour Forum so that people can, as I said, go and delve more into the areas that they're interested in. These are just a couple more examples of the interventions that we've got in the toolkit. I won't kind of talk you through all of them, but some of these might be familiar for anyone who's used the Users TCP toolkit. So under the sort of education and behavioural campaign section, we've got some information about choosing the right messenger and identifying appropriate channels. Under environmental restructuring, we've got information about using defaults and modifying the physical environment. And then we've got some categories under social influence as well, things like correcting beliefs about what others think and do, because we tend to be reluctant to take part in energy efficiency behaviours, in particular if we think that others aren't doing it. And there's a bit of a gap between kind of what we think other people do and what they really do. We tend to underestimate how much other people care about things like climate change, and that can kind of dampen our own efforts when in fact most people around us do care about climate change, but we just don't realise that. So there's sort of a gap there. And then involving the community in planning and action and using kind of co-design principles can really help increase kind of buy-in, and again kind of using the right messenger, using local groups can get people on board with energy efficiency programs. So there's more than just this, but I thought I'd give a snapshot of the kind of interventions that we're talking about. Then for the rest of the toolkit, the timeline is that we are currently doing the technical development, so turning all of these little flowcharts and things into an actual clickable, fun little flow. We'll be doing some user testing in February to see how people think of the actual flow of the toolkit as well as the content of it, and then making some amendments leading to a final version for release. At the moment, that's scheduled for the end of February. Here, I'm just going to do a little plug that if anybody would either like to take part in the user testing or know anyone who might be interested in doing some user testing, then please drop me a note, particularly anyone who's working kind of in local government who might be working on energy efficiency campaigns, or just anyone who's interested, because we are looking for a few more participants for the user testing. So do reach out if that's something that is interesting for you. So I've covered kind of the main bulk on the forum itself and the toolkit. I'm just going to kind of finalise with a few words on kind of how to get more involved, as well as obviously letting me know about user testing. So we have the Friends of the Forum, which is a way for people to get involved. So it's a good chance for sort of networking and exchanging ideas. People who are in the Friends of the Forum group can share resources on energy behaviour and have access to information on events and initiatives. So please, if you're interested, again, do join the Friends of the Forum group, and there's a code on the next slide to get that opportunity to network with sort of relevant stakeholders and get sort of exclusive information in events, and the possibility to kind of promote your activities and what you're doing. So we're looking for, as part of the Friends of the Forum, people that are experts in energy efficiency and behavioural insights, as well as local actors, so people that are actually kind of working in the local and regional authorities who might want to collaborate on some Energy Behaviour Forum work, training initiatives, behaviour change initiatives. So anyone who's kind of working in those areas, please do let us know if you fulfil these criteria and you'd like to join the Friends group. And this is how. I think these slides will be sent round, so you'll be able to click on that link. And then generally, if you don't want to be part of the Friends of Forum, that's fine, but please do stay connected. You can subscribe to the newsletter for up-to-date information on our events and training sessions. And as I've mentioned, the website will be launching soon, hopefully within the next week or two. So watch this space. We'll probably be shouting about it on LinkedIn and everything. If you're part of the newsletter, you'll know as well when it goes live. So once that's live, then that's the best place to kind of stay up to date with everything that is going on. So that's it for the presentation section. Hopefully I've sort of stuck to my timing okay, Sam. So yeah, I'm happy to take any questions now.
Well, thank you so much, Alice, for a great presentation. I'm just going to stop the recording now.